Corvette sailors will chiefly remember corvettes by reason of the extreme discomfort of almost every hour spent aboard. They were very cramped, they were much too small, even if the Atlantic was in a good mood, and above all, they rolled. They rolled as if that were the only thing they'd been invented for, and for all I know, that may have been the truth. They rolled so much that not only was sleep impossible, but even normal things like cooking or making a cup of tea, so that for days on end one lived on water and bully beef, eaten out of the tin with the fingers. But whatever their drawbacks, corvettes did a wonderful job in the Atlantic. They accounted for a lot of U-boats, and the amount of rescue work they put in was really incalculable. There was one corvette I specially remember, because she was a sister ship of ours, and we went on a lot of convoys together. When you know a ship like that, and know the men in her, you come to think that whatever other ships are sunk, it will never happen to that one. That was how we felt about this corvette. She was called the Zinnia, right up to the end. Then, on one convoy, her luck broke. We and Zinnia were the spare escorts, and one of us had to be detailed to drop astern of the convoy at dusk and fire a few rockets and drop a few depth charges in order to create a diversion. Zinnia was the one chosen instead of ourselves, and Zinnia was the one that was sunk. She was torpedoed, and she broke in half in a matter of seconds, and out of a crew of 90 men, we were able to rescue 15. That was what happened when a very small ship like a corvette was hit in just the right place at just the right speed. There was one other ship I remember, not an escort ship this time, but a big oil tanker. We'd crossed the Atlantic with her dozens of times, and sometimes she'd come very near to being hit. An oil tanker is a natural U-boat target, well worth a lot of trouble, and on one occasion they hit the ship ahead of her, and the ship astern as well, but they just missed her. She was a very old friend by the end of the war. We used to wave to each other and send cheerful messages. But just before the end of the war, well, you can guess what happened. She had survived nearly 6 years of Atlantic convoys, and every kind of narrow escape, and every kind of ordeal in the way of weather. And then she was hit one night, and she blew up in one huge explosion, and not a man of her crew survived. That's the kind of memory that gives you a permanent distaste for submarine warfare. But of all those memories of Atlantic convoys, it's the men you remember best, and of the men, it is the survivors who make up the strongest memory of all. One of the principal jobs for corvettes was picking up survivors after a ship was hit and sunk. Sometimes, on very bad convoys, you would finish up with 100 of them. Once we had 180, exactly twice as many survivors as the total of our own crew. They would be everywhere in the ship, in the wardroom, in the forecastle, dossing down on the upper deck, wandering about with nowhere to lay their heads. Some of them would be cheerful, some of them afraid, some of them sick or wounded, and some of them dying. Corvettes carried no doctors. For my sins, I was the man elected to deal with these wounded for the first 18 months of my service, and the memory of going down to the forecastle and there dealing with cuts and gashes and broken limbs and oil-fuel poisoning, that's a memory that can never die. By the end of that time, I came to know a good deal of rough surgery, and I learned a good deal about personal bravery and the kind of dogged endurance that can send a man back to sea even though he's been torpedoed in horrible circumstances 2 and even 3 times. And I came to know the burial service by heart.